Now it says I'm live, but we'll give it a minute to actually show up as being live. Okay. And we'll give a minute or two for people to shuffle in. So if anybody is there watching, hey, how's it going? My name is Aaron. This is not my show, Reeducation. And can you actually just turn down the volume in the background there? Thank you. So it looks like we got about 4 people watching right now. There are a few people watching. Anyway. So anyway, like I was saying, hi, my name is Aaron. This is not my show, Reeducation. Today, I'm actually talking about an event that happened in Portland, Oregon on Saturday that involved a journalist known as Andy GNO or NGO, Andy No. And he was apparently assaulted by anti-fascists. Now, Andy No is basically a conspiracy theorist. He promotes basically racism. He promotes anti-LGBT, and the funny thing is that he's a person of color and also happens to be gay. And he won't let you forget that, because that's the very first thing that he always tells people before he does something that is homophobic or transphobic or against people of color. If you look at his Twitter page, basically everything that he has on there is basically showing that he is a bigot. So anyway, so I'll now that we have a few people here, I'll start again and I'll try to go basically from the top. So anyway, hi, my name is Aaron. This is my show, Reeducation. Actually, it's not Reeducation, but I am doing a live event today talking about the event that happened in Portland on Saturday. So in Portland on Saturday, there were a few people that were still demonstrating for gay pride. And for a couple of weeks now, it's been known that the Proud Boys, a known neo-Nazi, white nationalist, white supremacist, fascist group, were going to do a counter demonstration. And that's exactly what they did. They were there basically trying to promote something known as the Him Too movement, which is a bastardization of the Me Too movement, very similar to Black Lives Matter was bastardized into Blue Lives Matter, that sort of thing. And they were there to basically rail against false rape allegations. But we all know that that's not why they were there. They were there doing the same thing that the Proud Boys do everywhere they go. They start a bunch of problems, they start a bunch of violence, and then claim that they were victims of that violence. So, and that's basically their MO. So they they promoted violence, they sparked a bunch of violence, and then when violence happened, they got to stand up and say, hey, we're the victims, and that was basically part of the plan. The whole idea was to make it seem as though the left are equivalent to the right. And when I'm talking about this, I'm not going to talk about the general public, people on the left, people on the right. If you're working class people and you're not very political and so forth, this isn't really about you. I'm talking about people that are super really into being left or right, and they're willing to promote hate and bigotry and so forth to spark problems on the left. So that was basically their plan. And it's been known about for a couple of weeks now. So the anti-fascist group in Oregon decided to do exactly what I think any anti-fascist group should do when they are being confronted by a bunch of fascists. They fought against them because that's what anti-fascists do. It's funny that if we look back at this back during World War II, we would see these people as being fucking heroes. But of course, because we live in the times that we do now, all of these people, even people on the left, are looked at as being violent aggressors, as though somehow milkshakes and eggs are equivalent to cars and bullets. It's so funny how we so quickly forget, or not us, but the media so quickly forgets about large events that happen, like, Heather Heyer being violently, viciously murdered during the Unite the Right rally just a little while ago. So the right was able to use this as a way to spark violence and claim that they are victims of that violence. And in doing so, this Andy No fella, who, as I was talking about just a few minutes ago, who is basically a conspiracy theorist. He's anti-LGBT, anti-POC, anti-everything like that, was violently attacked. And that part is true. As far as the allegations go that he did end up in the hospital, but as far as the allegations go that he had a brain hemorrhage or his brain was bleeding or that he was going to die because he got brain AIDS, I'm going to withhold judgment on those things until I see some actual proof. But from what I've seen, he was actually attacked. He got kicked a couple of times, punched a couple of times, and got a bunch of milkshakes and eggs and silly string shot at him. And as far as I'm concerned, I have a public platform, so I never condone violence. I think that condoning violence is a stupid idea for me to do because it will inevitably get my channel shut down. So I don't promote violence. But as far as I'm concerned, what happened to Andy No, if he did end up having massive brain bleeding and all of those sorts of things, I feel terrible for the guy. I really hope that he recovers soon. But that's not the thing that we should be talking about. We should, anytime there's violence that happens at a protest, it ends up being the first thing, the only thing, in fact, that we actually focus on and not the protests themselves. And that's not a bug, that's the feature, obviously. So I think it's pretty obvious by now. I support Antifa. I support anti-fascism. I am 100% against fascists. I think that they are the worst possible dregs of human society, and I don't want them to exist. So if there is a group out there fighting against them, then I'm going to be for that group, quite obviously. And Andy knew that this was going to happen, right? You can see, according to his Twitter feed, that weeks in advance, he knew, or at least days in advance, he knew that there was going to be a great big event that happens with the anti-fascists against the fascists. And he went with the intent of starting a problem, of getting into a fight. And it just so happens that there was only 8 people injured at that event, and one of them happened to be Andy. He went there looking for a problem and then found one. I'm sorry to say, but that's kind of par for the course. If you go to an event assuming that you're going to start a problem or you're going to get into a violent scuffle, then you're kind of setting out to do that. And if you go to Andy No's Twitter page, you can see he's constantly talking about how Antifa is violent and how they do all of these terrible things and so forth, this, that, and the other thing. So Andy going to that event, he went there to start problems. He went there to make sure that people were violently aggressive towards him. And it's really interesting and really suspicious, as far as I'm concerned, that the entire time we see all of the footage as he started to get attacked and up until him running away, but we didn't see any footage leading up to that, any of the footage leading up to possibly him doing something that was actually aggressive or sparking some kind of violent behavior in some way. So I'll talk a little bit about the event right now. So like I was saying, there was 8 people injured. 3 of them were police officers, 2 of whom were pepper sprayed, and 1 of whom was punched in the arm. And let's not forget that police arms matter. And one of them also, there was another person, I believe a police officer, that was hit in the head with a projectile. And according to any of the sources that I've seen, it didn't say what the projectile was. It could have been anything from a cinder block to an elastic rubber band, but we don't know what it was. But he was hit in the head with a projectile. So, and we have to be worried and concerned that this, basically this gang member, this hired goon of the state, was pepper sprayed or hit with an elastic band or hit with a milkshake or whatever it was. So, okay, so now my whole take on this aspect of it is that we pay so much attention to the violence that happens at protests, but we don't actually pay attention to the protests themselves. And like I was saying a minute ago, that's not a bug, that's a feature. That's part of the whole MO. As long as the news media is able to project the idea that the left is just as violent as the right, then we've continued to uphold what any of you regular viewers know as the spectacle. It's not something that's necessarily done with intent. It's not like a bunch of people in a smoke-filled room are creating these ideas, though I'm not entirely sold that that doesn't happen on occasion from time to time. But it's in the best interest of the state, of the establishment, to make sure that everyone knows that left-wing protesters are just as violent as right-wing protesters, and that the only thing that we should think, the only people that we think that should be allowed to use that violence is the state, because the state upholds the status quo. And be it left-wing, be it right-wing, well, not so much the right-wing, but definitely the left-wing, they are against the status quo. They are against the state, right? So, okay. So now going a little bit further into this, when it comes to milkshakes, okay, with people getting milkshakes thrown at them, I think that it's kind of the funniest fucking thing in the world that a bunch of people that tout themselves as being alpha males and so strong and so able to hold themselves up actually constantly cry over spilled milk and say that somehow this is going to escalate into some sort of genocide, or that this is going to escalate into something worse. And they use this as a perfect example. They get to look at this and say, see, all these crazy left-wingers, they're throwing milkshakes, and those milkshakes had quick-drying cement in them. And that means that that could have really hurt somebody, and it could kill somebody and put them in a hospital. Not realizing that sugar actually stops cement from setting. It's kind of a well-known fact. It's something that people, especially anti-fascists, have known for a very long time. So it's kind of unlikely that they would do something as ridiculous as pour a bunch of quick-drying cement inside of milkshakes, knowing that the sugar in them would make them not set. But regardless, they were vegan milkshakes, and they were vegan soy milkshakes, sorry. And the fact that they were pouring them on people, I mean, get a grip. Seriously. Yes, it is violence. And no, I don't condone violence. Like I said, it's a bad idea for me to condone violence. But also at the same time, it's fucking milkshakes. Get a grip. Stop crying over spilled milk. Now, as I was saying a moment ago, this is violence, right? This is considered assault. And if you are willing to commit assault, which is what this is, then you should be willing to accept the consequences. That's just something that you should be willing to do. And I've given this analogy before, if someone was to break into my house and they were to threaten my family, I would use overwhelming force to stop those people. And in doing so, I would be 100% willing to accept any of the punishment that happens to me, because I think that the cause that I was fighting for is just. So if I get charged with assault or whatever else because I was defending my family, friends, colleagues, co-workers, comrades, whatever, then I should be willing to, then of course I should be willing to accept those consequences. That's just part and parcel to doing an activity like that. And if you honestly think that people on the left somehow like believe that we should make it legal for individuals to commit violent acts against one another, no, I don't think that you should make that legal at all. I, in fact, don't really believe in your laws in the first place, because I wasn't there. I wasn't consulted when they were written. So as far as I'm concerned, they're going to enforce those laws upon us regardless. It's a known fact that even when people aren't being violent, they're still considered violent by the state and charged with all sorts of crimes and so forth. So, okay, so like I said, this is not something that I condone, because legally I should not be condoning violence. But also, here's the thing about not condoning violence, and I've talked about not condoning or condoning violence in the past. I recently read a book that I'm going to be doing a review of with Radical Reviewer sometime, I believe, at the end of the month. That's talking about how nonviolence protects the state. And after reading that book, it gave me a lot of very interesting information. I'm not going to say whether or not I 100% agree or disagree with the book, but what I will say is that nonviolent, there has been no situation in history where a protest or an event or some sort of organization or group was able to win without some sort of violence taking place, whether or not that was them being aggressors or whether or not there was aggression being done to them and they had to act in self-defense. No matter what happens, protests and demonstrations and so forth inevitably become violent. That's just part of what happens. And it's actually in the state's best interest to make sure that those protests do go violent. Because if they go violent, then it's something that they can point to and say, look, this is exactly what we were talking about. The only people that should be allowed to promote violence is the state. And it shouldn't be anybody that's a private citizen or whatever. So, yeah. And like I was saying, this is all just part of the spectacle. It's all just part of them trying to promote the idea that the left and the right are equivalent, that bullets are exactly the same as milkshakes, and that we should only ever uphold the status quo. Okay, so I think that I pretty much covered most of what I wanted to talk about. So there's 8 people injured. I do not condone violence. I wrote I don't condone violence a few times. Here's the thing about that. I don't condone violence, but I also think that it's important for us to, as revolutionaries, as activists, as everybody, that we shouldn't be condemning people using a diversity of tactics. If someone is being attacked or someone is having aggression done to them and they end up being violent, or there ends up being a fire or something like that that ends up happening, you can say, right, if you're being interviewed or whatever, you can say, listen, I don't know what their motivation was and we weren't there. But the idea that you should immediately jump to, let's condemn these people that are fighting for the same cause as us because they use a different tactic than us, one that we think is controversial, that's vanguardism. That's using, that's basically saying that my way of doing things is the only right way of doing things, and any way that you decide to do things is the wrong way. And that's not helpful. That, in fact, just gives the state and the establishment more cannon fodder to basically use against you, right? So whenever you're being interviewed or whenever you're being spoken to about some event that happens like this, not the last thing, obviously, try not to condone violence, but don't condemn people for trying to act in a way that they think is going to help the cause, right? Like, a diversity of tactics is the best possible solution. And even though I don't think it's a good idea to be violent, I'm not going to sit here and say that them being violent is something that I should immediately condemn, because the fucking state is being violent against them. If they aren't being violent, the right is being violent against them. Like I said, during the Unite the Right rally, these white supremacist fascists were showing up with firearms and showing up with all kinds of weapons and actively attacking people, shooting at people, murdering people. So if somebody thinks that they want to take it upon themselves to use violence against those individuals, I'm not going to condone that, but I'm definitely not going to shed any fucking tears because of it either. And like I said before, if Andy No actually did end up having some kind of brain damage or whatever, that's abhorrent. Like, come on, there's no reason for you to go out and attack this guy and severely injure him or whatever if he wasn't being aggressive in the first place. I think that you should definitely try to stick to only using aggression in self-defense. But like I said a moment ago, right? So, okay. And sorry, I'm just looking over my notes here so I can see if I had missed anything. Okay, so it looks like that's basically everything that I wanted to cover. Is there any questions that I had from the chat?
No, not really.
No questions? Nothing that I should really address?
No, people are asking what the book is, though.
What book? Oh, okay. So the book that I read was, I believe it was called "How the State." No, sorry, "How Nonviolence Helps the State." I'll try to make a post about that later on YouTube and tell you guys exactly what the book was, and if I'm able to, probably in the description of this video or in the comment section, I'll also leave a link to the book as well. It's a really short book. You can get it in audiobook format as well. And I think it only took me like maybe a day to listen to an audiobook while I was just doing some work in the garage or whatever. So, and it's a really, really interesting book. Like I said, I'm not going to outright say that I agree 100% with it, but also it brings up some really interesting points when it comes to this whole violence thing. Oh, another interesting point is that I did talk to a very popular YouTuber, Faraday Speaks, about this earlier. And he had a really interesting opinion on this too. And I don't know if I should necessarily tell everybody exactly what he said, but it was something to the effect of that whenever things like this happen, it puts us in a very difficult situation where we have to basically say that violence against the state is acceptable, but you don't really want to say that violence against the state is acceptable. And you don't. Because for those of you who don't understand this or who don't know this and who have been in my comment section before saying, why don't you tell us to do certain things? Why haven't you given us direct advice on how we can perform certain actions against the state and so forth? That's illegal. It's extremely illegal. It's called sedition. And you can be sentenced to up to 20 years of prison for doing something like that. So if you're promoting violence against the state, if you're promoting any idea of taking the state down, our freedom of speech laws somehow don't cover that, and we can be put into extreme trouble for doing something like that. And since I feel that my channel is better serving the public being open and actually, giving people advice rather than being shut down and having me put in prison, I'm not going to tell anybody how they should attack the state, or even if they should attack the state. As far as I'm concerned, legally and officially, I don't think you should attack the state. And I've made videos about that in the past. I've actually said several times in the past that you shouldn't attack the state and that it's kind of pointless to attack it because it's going to fall apart anyway. The best idea, the best tactic that we could possibly use is to make sure that we are the ones that grab that megaphone and we're the ones that are using it and not the fascists, because the general public is going to listen to whoever has that fucking megaphone. And if the fascists are the ones that have it, they're going to be the ones that are able to catch the state or catch the catch the state as it falls and cradle it back to health, where we could just look at it and say, you know what, fuck it, drop it. Let's try something new. Let's try something that actually might work. But like I said, I don't want, officially, legally, I don't want anybody to go out and attack the state. I don't ever promote violence. I don't ever think that it's a good idea because, like I said, that's sedition and that can be a fine up to 20 years. Anything else?
Yeah. What did Andy do to make people mad?
Oh, what did Andy do to make people mad? Okay, so that's really funny. As some people might have not seen at the very beginning, there was no footage of what Andy did or didn't do to make people mad. Conveniently, all of the footage that was of him doing anything was lost. And all we had was the very end result of him being attacked. So a little bit suspicious as far as I'm concerned. And it just so happened that he was perfectly in frame and it perfectly encapsulated the narrative that he projects all the time on his Twitter feed, that Antifa is extremely violent and they'll just go out and the left will just go out and attack people for no reason and so forth. So there was no footage of what Andy did or didn't do at this time. If you're out there and you have any footage, please give it to me. I would love to see what he was up to that got him, that got everybody so angry with him in the first place. Because as far as I've been to several demonstrations in the past for various different reasons. I haven't done any like anti-fascist demonstrations myself currently, but I have done other demonstrations in the past. As you know, most of you know that I was a neo-Nazi for a long time, and then so I haven't. I wasn't around back then, right? So in the future, I'll definitely never mind. But yeah, as far as any of that goes, there was no footage that I seen of what he did or didn't do. So if you can find some, I'd love to see it. That would be really interesting. Is there anything else?
Yeah. Why are you condemning violence against a known and open fascist?
Okay, so why am I condemning violence against a known and open fascist? I'm not condoning nor condemning violence against anybody. Okay, I'm not saying that it's a good thing or a bad thing that he was attacked. I'm simply saying that it happened. If I condemn violence, right, on my channel, then there's a very strong chance that I won't get shut down, won't get demonetized, won't have my channel destroyed, and have the SWAT team show up at my house. And if I condone violence, it's very likely that those sorts of things will happen. So, but like I've said in the past, completely separate from this event, if you are being attacked or if somebody is attacking your family or anything like that, then I feel that you are 100% in your right to defend yourself. And if it comes to something that you will get prosecuted for or whatever, then you have to be willing to accept the consequences of that action, right? So, like I said a moment ago, if somebody breaks into your house and you do something aggressive towards them because they broke into your house and they want to attack your family, then you have to be willing to suffer the consequences. And if the cause is important enough to you, that shouldn't be a question. You'd be willing to suffer the consequences regardless. Anything else?
Yeah, lots.
Oh, really? Okay. So yeah, we're now in the question and answer series section. So, and I'm having my my lovely friend here help me talk about exactly what those questions are. So go ahead and tell me some more questions.
Okay, somebody said, nice flag. Are you a Marxist-Leninist?
You know what? Every time somebody comes into my comment section, they ask me if I've become a Marxist-Leninist now. And every time you do that, it resets because I'm really trying hard to be a Marxist-Leninist. I'm trying so hard. It doesn't make sense. Some of it makes sense, but a lot of it doesn't make sense. But I'm trying so hard to become one. And every time you mention that, it resets to 0. So then I have to start all over again. So don't ask me if I'm becoming a Marxist-Leninist or else I'm just going to have to start from scratch.
They're not really on topic of the video, though. What's your political ideology?
Oh, okay. Another question is, what is my political ideology? I am I'm a libertarian socialist to anybody who isn't in the know. And to anybody who is, I'm an anarcho-communist. I believe that traditionally something like the USSR or communist China, so forth, they are basically, I like to call it authoritarian communist. So they have the state control everything. And what I believe is libertarian communism, which is basically the people are the workers are the ones that own and control the means of production. So my version of communism isn't communism, it's anarcho-communism, and it's not when the government does things, it's when the people finally get to own and control the means of production. And I also believe in the abolishment of all unnecessary or unjustified hierarchies.
Opinions on bullying?
Opinions on bullying? Like in what way?
That's all it was.
Okay, so somebody asked what my opinions are on bullying. My opinion on bullying is that you probably shouldn't bully people. I think that bullying is incredibly damaging, but also I think that if people are being bullied, say online or harassed online, that's something that you have to deal with in an online space. That doesn't make it okay. It's just simply a thing that happens all the time. So when you are being bullied in an online space, or basically anytime, when you give the people that are bullying you the reaction that they want, which is you getting really upset and going, "Wee!" right? Then they're going to get exactly what they want. They're going to feel justified in bullying you. And you don't want to be in that position. So if you want to actually know a great way to deal with bullies or a great way to talk to people online, check out my How to Revolution series or my Praxis series here on YouTube, and it'll explain a little bit more of how I feel that we can go about having conversations with people in those sorts of situations. And I've also done videos on bullying in the past too, so you can check those out as well.
Who decides who's a fascist?
Who decides who's a fascist? Okay, so that's a fantastic question. I personally have defined fascism in the past in several different videos. In fact, I even have a video that is called Fascism. And if you want to know how I deal or how I define fascism, you can watch that video. Basically, what fascism is an ultranational, authoritarian, right-wing extremist group, right? And I don't think that everybody on the right wing is a fascist. And I don't think that everybody that is alt-right is even necessarily a fascist. They can be. Certainly a lot of them are that. But as far as I'm concerned, they're not a fascist. But when it comes to, and I think I understand the root of this question. The root of this question is basically, so if we have a communist or an anarcho-communist structured society, who gets to determine who's the fascist in that group? And then are we going to use the state to attack those people that we've determined are fascism or are fascists? And that's kind of a horrible misunderstanding of how any of this actually works. In an anarcho-communist structured society, everybody is an individual, right? And if somebody wants to do an individual action against somebody because they think they're a fascist, that's up to them, right? That's not up to the rest of the society, right? The society can get together as a group and vote and find out if somebody is specifically a fascist. So if everybody in the anarcho-communist structured society looks at somebody like Stefan Molyneux, known fascist, alt-right, racist bigot Stefan Molyneux, if they are able to look at him and say, holy shit, this motherfucker's a fascist, they can all vote and say, yeah, this guy's a fascist. We should probably, whatever, try to re-educate him. Or we should basically try to reform this person. The other thing about anarcho-communism is we don't believe in punishment. Well, we believe in punishment, but we believe more or less in reformative justice rather than what we have now, which is just, you know, locking people up and that sort of thing. I didn't explain that perfectly, but I have videos about that too. So, and it's not really in the purview of this specific video. So, any more questions?
Yeah,
Okay, yeah, keep them coming. Keep them coming.
What's coming down the pipe? New videos besides Trudeau?
Okay, coming down the pike, I have a couple of new videos that are coming out after I do Trudeau Week. Right now, commemorating Canada Day, I had to come out with some videos that were talking specifically about Canada because it's not something that you hear a whole lot about from a lot of commentators. I know that there are a lot of Canadians out there. The Surfs, awesome Canadian YouTube channel. Go check them out. I haven't gotten a chance to give them a shout out yet, and now I'm giving you a bit of a shout out. So please go check out the Surfs. They're fantastic, and they're Canadian, and also other people as well. I believe the Humanist Report is Canadian, and it's nice to see a lot of good Canadian content coming out that is fighting against all of the terrible bastard asshole Canadian content that is out there, like Stefan Molyneux, like Stephen Crowder, the racist bigot, the racist homophobe. Who's that? The Canadian Faith Goldie and the other one too. There's another one as well. Okay, well, and also Faith Goldie and a bunch of other people. But that wasn't the question. The question actually was, what are the videos that I have coming out after this? Okay, so one of the videos that I have coming out after this is actually a video that I'm talking about abortion and kind of discussing Philosophy Tube and Ben Shapiro's view on abortion, and I have some kind of interesting things to discuss about that. And I have another video that I have done as well, and it's talking about gun control and basically the spectacle behind that. So that should be interesting as well. But okay,
So you got a $10 super chat from Homo Anarchosaurus.
Okay, I got a $10 super chat from Homo Anarchosaurus.
What's your favorite socialist writer? This person's reading Emma Goldman right now.
Okay, yeah. So they asked me what my favorite socialist writer is, and they're reading Emma Goldman. Emma Goldman is absolutely fantastic. I don't know if you would consider them a socialist writer, but I really enjoy reading about and the things that he wrote, which is Bakunin, and obviously anything that has to do with Richard Wolff. If you aren't reading Richard Wolff, or you're not watching anything to do with him and Democracy at Work right now, you're not you're doing a disservice to yourself if you're a socialist, because he is basically promoting what modern socialism should look like today in our current situation in the West. And I think that the things that he has to say about worker cooperatives and about just everything that he has to say about socialism, Marxism in general, is absolutely fantastic. And he kind of dog whistles about anarcho-communism, which is kind of nice. That you actually have somebody using dog whistles for a good cause and not for a terrible one. Oh, and also, come on, all of the other amazing YouTubers that are out there in BreadTube, they are fantastic. Peter Coffin, Angie Speaks, like I said, the Surfs, Radical Reviewer, all of those people. See, I like paying attention to the more contemporary people, but also some of the older ones as well. If you haven't done it, read the Bread book, Conquest of Bread by Peter Kropotkin. That's absolutely fantastic as well. And it's not a hard book to read, unlike a lot of Marx. Marx is very hard to read, and it's a bit of a slog, however you say that. So definitely Peter Kropotkin is fantastic. Oh, and Non-Compete. Check out Non-Compete. And Amelia Jane, and everybody else that I'm missing. Fuck, I'm missing 100 people here.
Most important or influential socialist texts for beginners?
Most important or influential texts for socialists who are beginners. Okay, so if you're a beginner, you're just entering into socialism and you want to know a very important text that you want to read, I would basically just take the same comment that I just had, copy paste it and put it here. And on top of that, I would definitely say Murray Bookchin is somebody that is really interesting. And I think that he explains concepts fairly well to people that are not completely educated on the subject. Actually, a great way to get your feet wet in this whole idea is just to Google this stuff and read up about it on like things like Wikipedia, that sort of thing. Wikipedia isn't a great resource, but it's a good way for you to just get a little bit of a foot in the door so you can know sort of the lingo that you're going to be using. Because when it comes to leftism, it's all lingo, man. There's so much language that you have to get through that it's just a big pain in the ass. Like, you got to know what proletariat is, and bourgeoisie, and petty bourgeoisie, and all of these things, and it gets to be like very complicated. So if you can learn a little bit about that first, then it makes all of the rest of this a lot easier.
Thoughts on actual Dem socialists?
On democratic socialism? Okay, so my thoughts on actual democratic socialists. So social democrats are what Bernie Sanders and AOC are, and they are not post-capitalist. Their idea is that they can basically take the system and give it a band-aid solution, and hopefully it'll fix things, maybe, possibly, even though they're putting a tiny little 1-inch bandage strip over top of a gushing wound that's just hemorrhaging and bleeding out all over the place. And I think that as much as people like to dog anarchists and communists and socialists and so forth for being a pie in the sky or having like pipe dreams, I tend to think that democrats or social democrats are just massive. That is a massive pipe dream, thinking that you can actually affect the status quo from the inside. Now, I used this analogy before, and people say, but Bernie Sanders. And yes, Bernie Sanders is fantastic if you are able to vote for him, because he's great. But not like, and I'm not saying that voting works, but, you know, just show solidarity. If you can vote for him, fucking do it, because, like, you're not going to have a revolution in the next whatever few months before the election, right? So you might as well try to do something along that line. But that wasn't the question. The actual question was about social democrat or democratic socialists, the actual ones. So democratic socialists are post-capitalist, and I would say that they are the first step when leading towards full-on communism or full-on socialism, and they're 100% allies. I think that they're fantastic. I work with them all the time. Leftist tech support, I believe, is democratic socialist or social democrat. He's somewhere in between. And he's a fantastic, they are a fantastic YouTuber, so definitely check them out. And yeah, as far as I'm concerned, Marxist Leninists, social democrat or democratic socialists, the real ones, anybody that's left of that line in the political compass map, they're all comrades. They all help, right? They're all part of the revolution, and we should all be working together. The best way that we can achieve a revolution is through a diversity of tactics, right? And that goes back to what I was saying just a moment ago, that when it comes to violent revolution or peaceful revolution or doing something as far as reform or revolution, right? We need all of those things. We can't just expect that the revolution is going to happen by using one tactic. Again, that's vanguardism. That's basically saying that we are able to have the best idea and everybody else's idea isn't going to work, and that's just foolish. The best tactic is a diversity of tactics. I like to akin it to basically the serpent with many heads. I can't remember what it's called, the Leviathan or whatever it's called, the serpent with many heads. When you cut off one head, there's always another head that comes back in its place, or maybe two heads that come back in its place. And it makes it incredibly impossible, if not completely impossible, to stop. But if we only have one tactic, then that's not going to help us at all.
Do you make a connection between bullies and fascists?
Do I make a connection between bullies and fascists? So as I said a moment ago, fascists are something that is very specific. It's a very specific ideology. And like I said, they're an ultra-nationalist, right-wing authoritarian group, that is defined by specific characteristics. And I don't think it does us any good calling everybody a fascist or everybody a Nazi. There are a lot of people out there that aren't fascists and Nazis, and it's a very liberal way to look at things, thinking that everybody that happens to be a bully is a fascist. They're not. Some people can be bullies on the left, some people can be bullies on the right, some people can be incredible bullies that are fascists, or people can be bullies that are Marxists or anarchists or whatever. Bullying is something that is, it has nothing to do with a political ideology. It just happens to have to do with you being a piece of shit. So yeah, as far as I'm concerned, no. Not all bullies are fascists, and not all fascists are bullies, but most of them are.
Prediction for Canada for the next 30 years.
My prediction for Canada in the next 30 years, I'm terrible at this. I can't give you a prediction for what's going to happen in Canada in the next 30 years. Mostly because I pay more attention to American politics than I do Canadian ones. What I hope for Canada is that we actually finally look at the two-party system. We don't have a two-party system. We have a multiple party system. But we actually look at that system and realize that these parties are fighting for the same goal, just like they are in the United States. Democrats, Republicans, same goal. Here in Canada, Conservatives or Tories and Liberals, NDP, Bloc Québécois, they're all fighting Bloc Québécois maybe a little less, but they're all basically fighting for the same goal, which is to uphold the status quo. And every time that you have a permanent organization, the goal of that permanent organization is to make sure that they continue to be in power, whether or not they achieve their goal or not. So really, I don't necessarily think that there's a use for any political parties whatsoever. We should actually be focusing on individual issues and having debates on those and not having debates on which prime minister is the best or which party is the best or whatever. Those kind of things, they muddy the waters. It kind of destroys the whole idea. So I don't have a direct prediction for what will happen in Canada, but I hope that we'll move towards getting rid of this multiple party system. And like I said, I'm a revolutionary. I want there to be a fucking revolution, not just in the United States, but all across the world. And right now, as we're entering as we're standing on the precipice, as we're right on the cusp of watching the entire fucking world go to shit and fall to hell, in the next 30 years, I've seen reports saying that there might not be a fucking civilization by then. So who's to say?
What is a great news outlet to watch and listen to that has anarchist-leaning viewpoints?
A great news outlet to watch or listen to that has anarchist-leaning viewpoints. So I don't know of any specifically. Vosh does kind of do a news-ish show. He's like kind of a commentator. And he does something very similar to a guy called Destiny. I've never watched any of Destiny's content, but apparently it's very similar. And he does tackle a lot of current events. And some of the things he says are very extremely controversial. And a lot of the things that he says are very helpful to the cause as well. So he's one person that if you want to have that kind of opinion, then you go to him. I know there's a lot of people out there that are going to jump down my throat. Vosh is blah, blah, blah. Vosh is this, Vosh is that. I'm not going to make a judgment call on that. I'm just saying he's somebody that you can go to for some sort of news or commentation, a commentator on those sorts of events. I personally, I like Jimmy Dore, but he's not an anarchist in any way. In fact, I think that he's, I don't even think he's post-capitalist. I like him. He reminds me of me because I'm not a super intelligent person. I'm just a regular guy. I work in my garage, and Jimmy Dore runs his TV show out of his garage. And he has a lot of great points. He has a lot of bad points, but he comes at things and looks at them for the most part with a very critical lens. And he's very critical of both parties. And slowly but surely, I see him slowly moving towards being basically post-capitalist. Ever since he left the Young Turks, my God, he's become so much more post-capitalist. It's fantastic.
Why is Marx so wordy?
Why is the question was, why is Marx so wordy? And you're going to have to ask Marx that. I don't know why he's so wordy. A lot of the ideas and concepts that he has are fantastic, but it would make it a whole lot easier if there was somebody out there that was explaining these concepts in very simple terms. And I try to do that once in a while, but I get it wrong sometimes, and I always get dogged by Marxist-Leninists. Marxist-Leninists are fucking hilarious because when they try to explain Marx, it takes them about 45 minutes to explain the same concept, so it ends up being more difficult to understand. So I don't know why Marx is so wordy. And oh, by the way, nothing against Marxist-Leninists. We're totally allies. We will definitely work together as much as we possibly can. Solidarity.
How do I read dry theory?
How do you read dry theory?
Like books.
Okay. So somebody asked, how do you read dry theory? Like books. One page at a time.
Okay. What's a good structure for software co-op? The problem with leading 20 to 30 people, but you need leaders and managers to do that.
Oh, okay. So somebody is asking what the best structure for a software co-op would be, talking about how you're going to need leaders and managers, and how would you be able to do something like that. I think that this goes for any kind of co-op, not just a software co-op, but any kind of co-op. When you are doing a cooperative, the best idea is to have everybody involved, right? So Richard Wolff says something very similar to, for 4 days out of the week, everybody does their job. And then for the 5th day of that week, half of them split up and half of them keep doing the job so the industry doesn't fall apart. And the other half works on what they should do. on what they should produce, how they should produce, when they should produce, and what they should do with the profits. And that is a great way to handle that sort of situation. But you're going to need to have a certain amount of leadership. Leadership is important when it comes to trying to organize lots of disparate people doing disparate jobs. Individuals are going to be able to handle their specific task really well and possibly help out with tasks with everybody else. But it's not necessarily 100% necessary, but in certain situations it might be necessary to have an orchestrator of some kind that's able to talk to them and direct them in a certain way, and tell them how to do things in a certain way. So, but the thing is that it's a lot different doing it this way than the way that we have it currently being done. The way that we currently have it being done is anybody with enough money to start a business is the one that gets to be the boss, whether or not they know how to be the boss. And I personally think that the only people that should be the boss should be the ones that are the best at the job, should be the ones that are actually able to do the job really well. They're the ones that have the most knowledge. They're the ones that have the most experience. They're the ones that are able to lead the best, because that's very important as well. And they are people that should constantly be questioned, and not somebody that should have full power and control over everybody there. They are very specifically working for the rest of the employees. The rest of the employees aren't working for them. That's the difference in having a top-down method as opposed to having a method that is bottom-up or basically horizontal.
Do Democrats and Republicans work together to keep any parties out?
Do Democrats and Republicans work together to keep any parties out? Yeah, absolutely. In the United States, there is no way to have a third-party system. A lot of people back in 2016 were talking about how they wanted to vote Green and how they wanted to vote for Libertarian Party and all of those sorts of things. It's literally impossible. Peter Coffin, actually, if you go way back in his very important documentary series, I can't remember which episode, he knows which one it is. He even knows the date of when he released it, because we talked about it. He talks about basically how in the two-party system as it is, there's no way for a third party to win, because they just are never going to be able to get enough votes. And yeah, so absolutely, the both parties work against a third party being able to get in, and even more than that, they work with the news media in a way that allows them to only promote those two parties. So those two parties are the only ones that end up getting to the top of the pile, where every other party barely gets any news coverage. And that's something that, again, I made another video on. And it's part of the spectacle as well. And if I could remember the name of the video, I would tell you, but all of a sudden I can't remember because I'm spacing on that a little bit. But yeah, there's no way for a third party to win in the United States.
What can Gen Z leftists do who don't have a lot of money and that want to aid the left?
What can Gen Z leftists do that don't have a lot of money that want to aid the left? Well, if you do have money or resources, I'll start off with this. A really, really great thing to do is to help promote any leftist content creators that you know by donating to them, because the state will not do that. Advertisers will not advertise on our videos. They aren't going to give us money to help promote Dollar Fucking Shave Club. Right? They're going to look at us and think that we are basically trying to stop whatever they're doing. So if you do have the means and you can, definitely fund leftist content creators. If you don't have the means and you can't do that sort of thing, then the best thing that you can do to show solidarity is to get out there and find groups of people that are of a like mind to you and join up with them, talk to them, family, friends, coworkers, neighbors, everybody that you can possibly talk to talk about socialist situations, to talk about socialist solutions, and find ways that you can actually improve the system. That is the best way that you can show support. Because boots on the ground, having us actually out there talking to people and starting and actually starting organizations or joining organizations or attending groups and grabbing that fucking megaphone and giving people the right solutions. Those are the ways that we can actually show change. Those are the ways that we can actually make things better, but not doing that. If you're not able to do that too, because there's a lot of people actually that are unable to actually go out and talk to people in real life. If you can't talk to people in real life, try to talk to people online. Try to find groups of people that are online in your community that you can also help support, even by printing off flyers or by promoting memes even. Memery is a very underutilized method of propagandizing on the left. And I think that it's basically I think it's called agitprop, but I can't remember the exact name off the top of my head. But it's basically the modern version of putting up propaganda flyers everywhere that you can to promote an idea of socialism. So if you have the ability to meme, get out there and fucking meme, baby, because people need to see these ideas in simple, soundbite, digestible forms. And it's something that the right wing does incredibly well. It's something that a lot of people do incredibly well, and it's something that we need to step up our game on. So definitely do that, and if you can, help fund the leftist content creators. They need any help that they can get, because they're definitely.
You got a super chat?
Okay.
From AJS Beast, $5. My take is Andy already was aware of what he was getting into, like what happened in November 17, 2018. I think he's a professional victim. What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, so this is a super chat. Sorry, who is the super chat from?
AJS Beast.
It's a super chat from AJS Beast. Thank you very much, AJ. And they are asking, basically, was Andy NGO, was he a professional victim? Absolutely. Absolutely. If you look at his Twitter feed, you will 100% see that this guy does everything he possibly can to provoke violence and then stands up and says that he was violently aggressed against because the thing happens that he directly wanted to have happen to him. I like to akin it to basically Andy No is that guy in the bar that is going to look at your girlfriend or your partner and call them a cunt as many fucking times as they possibly can to piss you off until you turn around and you drill that motherfucker. And then once you do, he's the first guy to run up to the police and say, "Whoa, he hit me. That's Andy No. And the fact that he got attacked isn't fucking surprising. Of course he got attacked. That was the whole idea in the first place. That was why he was there. Like I said a few minutes ago, if anybody has any video evidence of what he fucking said to get to provoke an attack, I would love to see it. I, in fact, encourage people to send me those videos because he is 100% just a professional victim. That's all that's basically his MO, right? So, yeah.
Why the V-neck?
Why the V-neck? It frames your face. You know what? Check out videos by Alpha M. They're a great resource when it comes to dressing and fashion and talking about like when to wear what kind of clothing and that sort of thing. I don't know. I like V-necks. They look good. You got a problem with V-necks? I don't give a fuck. I think that if you wear a crew neck, you look like a dumbass. Oh, nothing against people that wear crew necks. I'm going to get everybody attacking me in the fucking comments. I can't believe you don't like people that wear crew necks. You know what? Calm down. I like the V. I'm going to go with a deep V next time so you can see all my fucking chest hair.
Which is worse, fascists who only care about one race or corporate businessmen who care about nothing except profits, assuming each receives the sheep told.
Okay, so what's worse? Fascists who only care about one race or racist businessmen? Was it racist businessmen or just regular businessmen?
Only corporate businessmen.
Or corporate businessmen who basically want to see the world burn so they can make profit. What do I think is worse? Whew, that's a really tough question because one is an existential crisis that will most certainly lead to the deaths of millions, and the other is fascism. Basically, if you know anything about both those things, they help one another, right? So, capitalism, when it's finally in its death throes, when it's finally in late stage capitalism, it reaches a point where it needs fascism to thrive. It needs fascism so it can continue to exist. So, and that's exactly what you see going on right now. That's the whole reason why you're seeing people saying that the left is just as bad as the right, and all of this sort of thing, because they don't want to outright say that fascists are good, or that they help business, or they help the status quo, but they're definitely not going to say that they don't, because they are basically the foot soldiers. They're how did I put this before? They are the defense mechanism of capitalism. They're kind of like the white blood cells that show up as soon as capitalism is being aggressed against. Right? We have the police force, which is basically fascism anyway, upholding the law of the state on a daily basis. And then when that state starts to crumble, starts to see people aggressing against it, then they unleash the fucking fascists. And the funny thing is, too, about fascism is that a lot of them have the right idea. Now, hold on, before you jump into the comments. A lot of them have the right idea about a lot of things, right? They understand that there's problems with capitalism. They understand that there's problems with the state. They understand that there's all of these problems. They just always they just always assume the solution is like killing all of the Jews, or blaming all of their problems on immigrants, or whatever. So fascists, they think that they understand what's going on, but they just don't take that final extra step to actually say, oh, wait, oh, what we're doing is actually helping the state and not actually dismantling it. Shit. Well, like that's basically their whole idea, is that instead of actually attacking the state, they promote the ideas of the state, Blue Lives Matter, and so forth. And in doing so, yeah, they basically project the ideology of the state instead of actually fighting against it.
How can leftists portray strength?
How can leftists portray strength?
Yeah.
So how can leftists be strong? How can they project strength? That's a fantastic question. I think that right now, especially when it comes to these demonstrations that were happening in Portland, I think that the left projected a fucking ton of strength. I think that them being able to go out and actually not necessarily be violent, but show that they are not afraid of these individuals, show that they aren't scared to actually stand up and fight for their rights. That's a fantastic way to project strength. I think that another fantastic way to project strength is to not get hurt about things that happen online, right? Like if somebody's calling you names, or if somebody's saying something that's against you online, not to get hurt by that, but to understand that they're just there to provoke you, and to show strength by using some of the tactics that I've listed in several videos before, or just completely ignoring them. I think that those are great ways to show strength. Another great way to show strength is to just pour vegan soy milk all over yourself anytime that you possibly can. No, I'm just kidding. That's not actually a great way to show strength, but it is hilarious, and I will probably do that in the future. But yeah, there are a lot of great ways to show strength. And another great way to show strength is to try to become the best you that you can be. One of the things that I think is super duper important, one of the most important things that you can do, is try to be as strong as you can mentally, physically, in your will, spiritually, everything like that. All of those things are incredibly important. If you have the ability, go out and try to work out, try to exercise, try to get as healthy as you possibly can. We're not going to get into the health debate here, but try, like, whatever health means to you, try to become that. If you are able to, try to get out there and read as much as you possibly can. Try to get as much knowledge as you can about all of these situations. Try to become as mentally strong as you can. If you can, try to be as spiritually strong as you can, because even though I'm an atheist and I don't think that organized religion is necessarily helpful in a lot of situations, and it can be used and manipulated to help the state and all of these sorts of things. The whole term that religion is the opiate of the masses, written by Marx, is a kind of a misquote. He wasn't talking about how religion is a bad thing. He was basically talking about how religion can help people when they're in a time of need. And even though I don't usually turn to religion when I'm in a time of need, I know that certain people do. And being able to have that to fall back on, being able to be spiritually strong for certain individuals is incredibly important. So all of those are great ways to be able to show strength and be strong as a leftist.
Thoughts on Hassan Piker?
So my thoughts on Hassan Piker. I know him from the Young Turks back when I was a liberal. I was a liberal for not a very long time either. So, and I did really like the Young Turks. I think that he's fine. I did watch a small clip of one of his videos just before I came live today, where he was talking about the whole thing with milkshakes. If you add quick drying cement into sugar, it won't actually set. And I thought that that was really good information. I found out today actually that he is that he 100% supports anti-fascist action and antifa, and I do too. As far as I'm concerned, I made several videos about Antifa talking about how I definitely support them, and I think that they're fantastic. So if Hassan supports them too, that's great. As far as his political ideologies go, I thought that he was a liberal until about 38 seconds ago. So I don't have much information about him. So if you want to tell me some interesting things to watch about Hassan, link or tell me in the comment section below. That'd be fantastic.
Why are you an anarcho-communist instead of another communist ideology?
Why am I an anarcho-communist instead of any other kind of communist ideology? Okay, because I think that right now what we need is something that is unlike anything that we've tried in the past. So when it comes to Marxist-Leninists, when it comes to MLMs, that sort of thing, I feel like their hearts are in the right place. And a lot of their tactics are incredibly good, and they should not be dismissed. It's extremely brilliant, some of these people, and a lot of the work that's been done. But I feel that the most important thing that we have to focus on right now is the abolishment of all unjustified and unnecessary hierarchies. I would almost go so far as to say that I'm an anarchist first and a communist second, because I feel like getting rid of that incredibly damaging hierarchy is the first thing that we need to be paying attention to. It's the number one goal of this channel, and for me, is to promote the idea that we need to dismantle that, because simply having the state run everything instead of a private business, if you follow Richard Wolff's definition, right, that isn't communism, that's basically state capitalism. A lot of Marxist-Leninists are going to get mad saying that's not state capitalism, it's communism. Call it whatever you want. Definitions are fluid. That's how language works. But as far as I'm concerned, we don't need the USSR 2.0. We don't need communist China 2.0. We need something different. We need something that will work. We need something that, like I said a moment ago, we need a diversity of tactics, right? The Marxist-Leninist tactics, the MLM tactics, the anarcho-communist tactics. We need a diversity of all of those tactics so we can actually have success, right? So we can have a successful revolution. Without that, then we're basically just flailing. We need to have that serpent with the many heads, right? The Hydra, that's what it's called, the Hydra. We need to have a Hydra of ideas. So if one idea gets cut off, two more come up in its place. Right. It's the same thing as why I believe that even democratic socialists and social democrats people that aren't post-capitalist quite yet, or just barely post-capitalist, I think that their tactics are fantastic as well. I think that voting for Bernie Sanders is a fantastic idea as well, right? I think that things like the Women's March and any protest that happens when it comes to trying to achieve a Band-Aid solution in our current system is useful too, right? But I don't think that's the only way that we should go about it. We need everything. We need to overwhelm the system with unrelenting force, with an unstoppable amount of everybody getting together and just constantly railing against it. Again, I do not want us to destroy the system legally. That is a sedition, and I'm not going to put myself in that position. But if I was to give advice, I would say that we need to have a diversity of tactics. One single tactic is not going to save us. And I'm an anarcho-communist because I believe that a diversity of tactics is the best possible solution, and dismantling the unjustified hierarchies that we have and not having a centralized state is one of the most important ways to do that.
Should we show our political views visibly in public? If yes, how?
Should we show our political views publicly or should we show our political views publicly? If so, how? Okay, so that really depends on you in your current situation. If you are a communist, or you're an anarchist, or you're whatever, and you are living whatever, like with family, or you're in a place like your job where they are going to be against you outright saying those things, then don't, right? It's not as important for you to be fighting in that struggle as it is for you to make sure that you are able to survive. Without you being able to survive, you're not going to be there to help us fight when we need you, right? So if you're unable to show that you are that thing that you say that you are, anarchist, communist, Marxist, Leninist, whatever, if you're not able to show that you are that thing because it'll destroy your life, it'll destroy your livelihood, it'll put you out on the street, anything like that, then don't. It's the same thing I used to tell people when they were asking me if I'm an atheist, and I want to tell people that I'm an atheist, and I could get kicked out of my parents' house for that or whatever. What should I do? It's the same answer. Same answer is just don't say it, right? Unless you're in a comfortable position to say it. And if you are, then show it however the fuck you want to show it. Put a flag in your car. Wear pins on your shirt. Get a great big t-shirt that has an anarchy A on the damn thing. I don't care. Paint your face red and black. Wear pants that have a great big ham stick on the crotch. I don't give a shit what you do. All of those things are fantastic. If you want to show that you are that certain political ideology and you think that it's important, then fucking show it. But always, 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 always remember that we are, as leftists, anti-sectarian, right? We want to be as, we want to have everybody that is joining in on our revolution to be in our group. We're not the kind of people that are looking at the at the Marxist-Leninists and saying your tactics are wrong. We're not the kind of people that are looking at the anarchists and saying your tactics are wrong. Like I said, we need a diversity of tactics. We need anti-sectarianism. We need to all work together. We need to not have infighting, and I've talked many times about that in the past. And we need to work on gaining that revolution however we possibly can. So yeah. Wear your red shirts, wear your ham sticks, paint your face up red and black, do whatever you want.
If someone was interested in starting a business for their well-being, what would be, in your opinion, a feasible way to operate a business that isn't exploitative in nature?
Okay, so somebody asked what the best way to start a business is that is non-exploitative. I can't really give that sort of explanation because no matter what you do, somewhere along the lines, there is a certain amount of exploitation that happens regardless. That's the world that we live in right now. Excuse me. If you work on the computer, somewhere along that line, there's a certain amount of, I can't remember what it is, but there's a special substance that we use to make a lot of cell phones and computers and batteries and so forth. That's basically a conflict mineral. And even just going on your computer, you're helping promote some sort of political violence in some way. So is there a way to get around exploitation? No, there really isn't, unless you are hand looming sheep's wool that you sheared yourself into t-shirts that have anarchy A's on them, and then you're trading them for like, I don't know, like steak or vegan milk or whatever, there's really no way that you can do it. But the best businesses that I've found, and I've started a few businesses in the past, is actually selling jewelry. Jewelry has an incredibly high markup, and you can get it for quite cheap. And if you're a little bit artistic, you can make it for quite cheap. So if you're looking for kind of like an idea as far as business goes, that might be a way to go. But as far as being able to do it without exploiting somebody in some way, it's kind of difficult.
Okay, people are finding this particular person really annoying in chat, but I don't want to block them, so I'm going to ask one of the questions from them.
Okay, so somebody is being really annoying in chat, and I don't block people in chat because it's against my policy on freedom of speech. So please stop being a dick if you could. Thank you very much. And I am going to answer your question. So what's your question?
Why do anarchists need a revolution? Just start forming anarchist structures and collectives.
Yeah, okay, so they asked, why do anarchists need a revolution? Just start forming anarchist collectives. Yeah, do that, absolutely. Get out there, start forming collectives, start forming any kind of business that you possibly can that is a worker cooperative, if you can, if you have the means to do so. Why do we need a revolution to do those sorts of things? Because cooperatives have existed for years, and they're extremely hard to start because we exist in a situation where the capitalist industry is the one that controls fucking everything. So they're not going to allow an industry to just come up that's able to give their workers more money, is able to give their workers more autonomy and the ability to actually have their own business and take pride in their work. They're not going to allow that sort of thing to happen because they're going to be making better quality products for a cheaper price and paying their workers a fuck of a lot better, instead of having all of that money just go to some CEO a million or 1,000 miles away, sitting on a beach fucking drinking a margarita, right? So there's a lot of incentive for capitalism to make sure that communist structures and anarchist structures do not survive. And what exactly would be your fucking definition of a communist structure that we could set up right now, right? Because I'm sure that if I said, oh, let's start a communist worker cooperative, well, we're still working within a capitalist structure, so it's not technically communist. So get out of here with that. The only way that some people can actually have a communist structured society or an anarcho-communist structured society is if we completely eradicate every ideology on the face of the earth and make it all communist, which won't happen right away. Hopefully will happen eventually, though.
How do you feel about caving into capitalist super chats and comparable hierarchies?
How do I feel about caving into capitalist super chats and other comparable hierarchies?
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure what they mean by that, but if the question is that how do I feel about getting money in a situation where I need money to live, I feel totally fine about that. I have to work within the system, at least to a certain extent, so I don't die. Not doing that would be completely counterintuitive, or would be completely counterproductive, because I think it's a lot better that I'm able to get super chats and actually be able to pay my fucking rent and be able to continue this show than it is for me to just sit on my hands and assume that everybody's just hopefully going to do the right thing. Like, that doesn't make any fucking sense at all. Of course, we need money so we can actually do things. Like, what kind of question is that?
What's your workout routine?
What's my workout routine? Okay, so I have a bunch of different workout routines. It's important that you switch it up kind of often so you can give your body a time to rest, and also so you can work out different muscle groups, right? So a lot of the time what I'll do is the thing is that I'm not near a gym. I live literally in the middle of fucking nowhere, but there is a park that's kind of near my house that has a gym kind of set up there. So I do several sets of leg lifts. Then I'll also do a lot of chin-ups. Depending on how I feel that day, I'll see if I can do, say, 5 or 6 sets of 20 or 30 chin-ups. Obviously, when on off days when you're not doing arms, you want to do legs. I haven't been doing legs as much lately, and I've been told that I look like a fucking like I have Crohn's disease or something. Yeah, oh, that's a terrible one. But like, yeah, so definitely try to alternate on different parts of your body. If you want a good exercise for building your chest, if you are able to get a bench, or even in a park with a bench that doesn't have a back on it, if you're able to lie down with some dumbbells or even some milk jugs filled with water, and you're able to do chest flies, those are incredibly good for building your chest.
How come you never talk about how communism leads to mass poverty and starvation? I'm not against communism, but our society is not ready for it. Our population is too large.
Oh, that's such a silly comment. Okay. Somebody just mentioned why I never talk about how communism leads to poverty and how it's impossible for us to achieve communism because our population is too large. Oh my God. This is like, there has to be a logical fallacy when it comes to this shit because it's so fucking stupid. And it should be like a logical, the fallacy of like our population, the population fallacy or something. There's just too many people for us to be able to do something. They pull the same shit off when they're saying, oh, we can't have socialized medicine in the United States because the population is too big. We would never be able to fund socialized medicine for everybody, even though they don't understand that with more people means they're producing more labor and therefore more money goes into taxes. So you can take that larger pool of money from those fucking taxes and put it towards socialized medicine. Duh. But the same thing goes with the population argument when it comes to communism. Communism doesn't necessarily lead to poverty. Look at fucking China right now. And I'm not going to say that China is 100% communist. It's kind of a mixed economy between authoritarian communism and capitalism, independent capitalism. But right now, I think their growth rate over the past like 30 years or something has been between 6 and 15%. Whereas the United States economy has been sitting at a fucking minuscule 2 to 3%, right? Their economy is exploding, right? And the same thing happened with the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union went from being a backwards agrarian population with people that had basically no education, no understanding of anything, and became like the second largest, if not the largest superpower on the face of the fucking planet in about 10 years. The reason why a lot of those societies ended up having poverty and ended up having breadlines and so forth was in the Soviet Union's situation was partly because of external influences, simply that the United States and other Western civilizations refused to help them in any way. So any resources that they had to produce themselves or within the Soviet Union, or else they were fucking not getting them. And also because of internal conflict, specifically having to do with that unjustified hierarchy system. Having an unjustified hierarchy inevitably leads to people going into poverty and not getting the resources that they need because we're not allowing the people themselves to make the decisions. We're being forced to have those decisions made for us by an external entity, by a governmental force, by a single dictatorial group, right? And that doesn't help us. That directly drives the fucking system into the ground. So that's why I don't talk about that much. But I still talk about it. Like I actually have full videos where I talk about how the Vanguard Party and Marxist-Leninism and stuff like that isn't the best way for us to go into the future because it does lead to those exact problems. So do I talk about it? Absolutely. Is it something that I feel is necessary to talk about all the time? No, because I'm not promoting fucking that kind of communism. I'm promoting anarcho-communism, the one kind of communism that can actually fucking work. Not anything against Marxists, Leninists, we're allies, non-sectarianism, but still. Yeah, anyway, next question.
Can you address communism when it comes to overpopulation, pollution, and energy?
I'm not entirely sure what the question is. Can I address communism when it comes to overpopulation, pollution, and energy? I have to suss out exactly what you're asking when it comes to that. As far as communism, when it comes to overpopulation and energy and so forth, um, when you're in a communist structured society or an anarcho-communist structured society, uh, you are more likely to do things that are in the best interest of the people than to do something that would just directly destroy the environment, right? So as far as pollution goes, say you work at a pencil factory, and that pencil factory pumps X amount of pollution into the stream every single day. And all of the people that work at that pencil factory live near that stream, and they get their water out of that stream. They get their drinking water. They bathe from that stream and everything like that. All of their resources come. They get fish from that stream. That sort of thing. They are incentivized to make sure that that stream is as unpolluted as humanly fucking possible, or else they're going to die, and then that pencil factory will no longer exist. So they're incentivized to make sure that things are less polluted as opposed to more polluted, because it incentivizes health and well-being and reduces pain and suffering, specifically for the reasons that I just gave. As far as overpopulation, I'm not sure what you mean by that. If you have more people, then you have more people able to work, and more people that are able to work on the land. So as far as that part of it goes, I guess there could be an issue somewhat with overpopulation, but I don't necessarily think that it's a big deal, especially if you come to where I live in the middle of fucking nowhere in Canada, where we have hundreds of millions of fucking acres of just empty space, where there could be fucking piles of things built, and there's tons and tons of room for people to actually live. The idea that we have an overpopulation problem is looking at things in a very myopic, very singular view on the world. You're looking at somewhere like Los Angeles in the United States, or you're looking at somewhere like China, where it has a ton of people in a tiny little area. But we technically have a lot of land. So I don't really know what the question is on that one.
What are some decentralized tactics we could use to combat climate change?
Okay, so I'll take this question and one more question, and then I think we'll be done. So what are some decentralized tactics that I think that we can use to combat climate change? So that is a fantastic question. And I think that it goes back to my old mantra of getting out there, getting active, and getting involved in any sort of climate, pro-climate group, or any group that is fighting against climate change, and trying to help promote socialist ideas in them, right? One of the specific groups that I talked about before was, oh boy, I can't remember it off the top of my head. But in any case, there are a lot of groups that are fighting against climate change. And if you are actually able to get into one of those groups and ask people to come along with you to go door to door and, bring out flyers, bring out leaflets, talk to people in the street, go to restaurants, talk to the waitress, get people involved and invested in those sorts of things. It's the most important to have a ground campaign for those groups, and actually getting people motivated to join them, rather than just passively hoping that people are going to hear about it because of any action that you're doing and join. The problem with just hearing about an action and hoping that people will join is that most of the time people won't join, because you have an incredibly large propaganda machine fighting against you doing anything like that. The news media is never going to help promote that. The establishment is going to fight against you every step of the way. So you have to be that promotion. You have to be able to get out there, and you have to go door to door, knocking on doors, talking to people, talking to friends, family, coworkers, and so forth. That's the best way that you can go about doing anything as far as climate change goes. And that's directly when it has to do with climate change. As far as I'm concerned, the best way to attack climate change is to dismantle the unjustified fucking hierarchy that is holding climate change, or that's promoting climate change as it is, right? Because capitalists you can put as many Band-Aid fucking solutions on it as you want, right? But they're always going to try to just promote the status quo. There are oil rigs now that are in the middle of the fucking ocean that they're talking about building walls around so they don't get bombarded with tidal waves because of climate change. People are talking about how another thing that I read about recently as far as climate change goes is all of the bees. You know, the problem with the bees, how they're basically going fucking extinct. Well, all of the bees now are being rounded up by capitalists and put into little boxes and then being shipped to different places that need to have pollination for a fee, of course. That's how they end up making money off of all of this. And don't think for a fucking second that if we start having problems with fresh water or wars for water or whatever, that capitalists aren't going to just boost the amount of money that it costs for you to fucking buy a bottle of water, right? Like, that's just how this fucking game is played, man. Okay, one more question, and I'm gonna have to get out of here.
What are your thoughts on animal liberation? That was asked a couple times.
Oh, what are my thoughts on animal liberation? I think that it's a great thing. I think that it's an incredibly important thing, and I actually want to make a video about that because the way that we treat non-human animals is fucking disgusting. When it comes to factory farming, when it comes to just the way that we treat them in general, it's disturbing on so many levels. And we actually use similar tactics when it comes to factory farming and that sort of thing as we do when it comes to rounding up people and putting them into fucking concentration camps and that sort of thing. The same tactics, I believe, that were used, I don't quote me on this because I don't know a lot about it, but I think the same tactics that were used in Nazi Germany against the Jews were used against animals, or are being used against animals, and that's fucking disgusting. And I live in the middle of a bunch of farmland, right? Like, I'm around farmers all the time. And I've never directly seen a factory farm, because a lot of the way that our farms are set up here is that I think the cows and so forth are raised free range and then eventually are shipped to a fucking factory farm. So they live okay lives right up until that point, and then it's just utter fucking terror for the rest of their lives. So yeah, I think that as far as animal liberation goes, it's extremely important. Non-human animals are important. Absolutely. And if you do eat meat, like I'm a meat eater, right? Like, I'm not a vegan. And I try to eat as little meat as I possibly can. And anytime I do get any sort of meat, I'm usually getting it from an independent farm. I'm usually getting it from, there's a religious group called Hutterites where I live, and they raise all of their own animals. They treat them very humanely. And I usually get meat from them, or I hunt it myself. And occasionally I'll get a McDonald's cheeseburger just because they make them taste really good. But I feel bad about it when I do. So is there any other really good questions? I think that I've seen a super chat show up.
Yeah, this is a $5 donation.
Okay. And if anybody has any more super chats, leave them now, because I'll answer those questions. But after that, I really got to go.
You have 4 more questions.
Oh, I have 4 questions. Okay, so I have 3 super chat questions still to answer. So. Oh, okay, go ahead.
Okay, have you formed an opinion on nuclear power?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Have I formed an opinion on nuclear power? I am 100% for nuclear power. I think that most of the stigma that is around nuclear power is incredibly overblown. I think a lot of it has to do with a misunderstanding of how nuclear power actually works. And even though I don't think that we have a perfect solution on how we deal with the waste, it is far, far less damaging to the planet for us using that sort of power than it is for us to be promoting this incredibly damaging fossil fuel industry, which I actually have a video about tomorrow that's coming out directly about that. So not about fossil fuel or about nuclear power, but about fossil fuels in the oil industry. So
why would an anarchist want to empower the state? And apparently you're incoherent.
I'm incoherent.
That's what the person said with the question.
Oh, okay. I didn't mean to be incoherent, but Why would an anarchist
want to empower the state?
Why would an anarchist want to empower the state? They wouldn't. We're against the state. I don't know how else to answer that question.
Have you considered doing regular live streams?
Have I considered doing regular live streams? Is that something that people are interested in seeing me do? I usually do semi-scripted, no, not really scripted, but I usually jot out a couple of ideas and I put them out into the wilderness and hope that people like it. So if people want me to do live streams more often, fuck it, I guess we can do that.
Yeah, that's all you have. Lots of yeses, by the way.
Lots of people want me to do live streams. Okay, cool. I guess I'll start doing more live streams. And that's it for comments?
Yeah.
That's it for super chats? Okay, perfect. Thank you very much for watching. I'm going to try to shut this thing off and probably do it wrong. And then everybody's going to see me like talking to myself. So thank you very much for watching. My name is Aaron, and have a great day.